Hello everyone, my name is Ashish. I'm a junior doctor working in the UK. This is the next part of the Learn Python series. In this video, we will talk about functions. So what are functions? Functions are code that run when called and they return data as a result. And this data can be returned as a result of passing parameters, or this can be returned without passing parameters. We will talk about all of these in some time, so do not get scared. Let's first define our first function. In order to define a function, what we will do, we will use the def keyword, which is define, and we will write the name of this function, and this is print underscore hello. Then we will put two rounded brackets, put a colon, then we will give 4 spaces using the spacebar, or you can use the tab key as well, and press enter. This will indent the next line. Then we will write the statement that we need to execute when we run this function. And in this case, I have written print this hello string. So when we execute this line, it saves this function in the memory. And in order to call the function, we write the function name and we open and close these rounded brackets. And this is the way to call the function. When we call this function, you will see that the line that was inside this function gets executed. Keep in mind that you always need to indent this line or else the code will fail. You must have used functions inside Python previously as well, and these were inbuilt function. For example, the type function, and in order to use the type function, you just pass in a variable to this function, and what it does, it returns the type of variable, and here it is float. You also have some more inbuilt functions, and one of them is round. Here you need to pass 2 arguments. One is the name of the variable that you need to round, and the second one is the number of places till which you want to round this variable. So here, when we pass this variable that we have already defined and 2 here, so it will round our variable var to 2 places. Now you can define functions with arguments. To define functions with arguments, you will use the def keyword again. Write the name of the function here. I have named it add underscore and 2 underscore numbers, and then I've given it 2 parameters, num1 and num2, and I'm separating them with a comma. I'm putting in a colon, and then I'm giving it 4 spaces, and this will lead to indentation of this line, and then I'm giving it a command, and this is print num1 plus num2. When we save this function in the memory by executing this, and when we call it with 2 numbers 1 and 2, it will add 2 of these numbers and it will print the result of num1 plus num2. In the same way, we can define another function that is called say underscore hello, which has an argument that is called name, and when this function will run, it will print hello plus the name. And when we run this function with this string called Ashish, it will say hello Ashish, because that was inside this function, and when we execute this function, this line of code gets executed. We can also state the keyword arguments by writing num1 is equal to 1 and num2 is equal to 4, or we can write name is equal to Mayank when we are going for executing these functions, so it will behave in the same way. It is just a bit clear when we execute a function with named arguments like that. Now, a lot of times, if you try to execute this function that is say underscore hello that we had already defined, and you don't pass in the name, what it will do, it will throw an error, and it will say that say underscore hello function is missing one required positional argument, that is name. In order to resolve this error, either we can write the name when we are calling this function, or we can set a default parameter or default argument. So we will define this function again using the def keyword, name it say underscore hello. We will put in the argument that we need to put in when we are executing this function, and we will give it a default argument or default parameter with my name, and we will save it to memory by executing this line of code. Now when we execute this function without any parameters, it will just use the default one and it will print hello Ashish in this case. But if we give it another parameter such as Georgia in this case, it will say hello Georgia. Now instead of printing, you can also return arguments from a function. This is a very important concept, so understand this very well. So what I've done here is I have written two functions here. The first one is called multiply, which takes two arguments, num1 and num2, and it returns num1 multiplied by num2. In the second function, I've named it multiply underscore 2. It takes two arguments again, num1, num2, and it prints num1 multiplied by num2. Now let's try to execute both of these. And I've used the same numbers 3 and 2. Now what I'm doing is I have defined two variables, x and y, and to x I'm assigning the value which is coming out of this multiply function, and to y I am assigning the value which is coming out of this multiply underscore 2 function. When we print these, you will see that x has a value of 6, but y has a value of none. This is because I did not return this num1 into num2 from my multiply underscore 2 function. I just printed it on the screen. So when you try to assign the value which is coming from this multiply underscore 2 function, because it is not returning anything, it will not assign anything to y, and y will be none. So please keep this in mind. Please keep this in mind that print and return are very different from each other. The last thing is that we can also define an empty function, and to define an empty function we can just use the pass keyword, and when you have done that and when you execute this, it will not return anything because it is an empty function. So these are all the things that you can do with functions. I hope that this video was useful. Thanks a lot for watching. I will see you soon.